Hey, Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk coming at you live from LL3. Lusk Landing, we're going to call it here on the shores of the Brazos River, Pecan Plantation. Hope you guys are having a great holiday season. We are. It's been pretty dadgum interesting and amazing as well. So, welcome. We've been able to hang out with all the grandkids and spend some time with them, and now I get to hang out with you. You know, it's been a couple of weeks. Let me see here what all I got coming. Oh, look at there. Michael Cooper's checking in from over there in Gordonville, Texas. Steve Stoop. Good to see Steve. Michael Gray from Nashville. James Sewell. Drew Bachman from North Carolina. Hello, you guys. Good to see everybody there. So now I'm trying to see here what's going on from my side of the fence. And see here, I see Jim Elledge. I don't see any comments yet, so I'm just hoping that all this stuff is working. So, hey, welcome to this broadcast. I thought I'd start off tonight talking about fish habitat. I got an email a couple days ago, actually yesterday, I think, from a young man that said, hey, I was at the store. There we go. Yeah, I see Drew posted. Love it. Good to see you guys. So, Frank James, yeah, we had a really great Christmas. We had all the grandkids here. We didn't get to visit with the one in the Air Force because he couldn't get off, but we have had a great time. We've had the kids here, grandkids here. Got to go hang out with the grandkids that couldn't come. Santa even showed up to our house, and we had 6 grandkids here when Santa rang the doorbell and came in, and he knew them all by name, knew what they wanted. They were blown away, and it was great. Hello, Devin Thompson. Good to see you, brother. David Hoskins, I see David's checking in. So anyway, I got an email. I thought I'd start off with that one, where the question was he was at the local store, and I think it might have been the Dollar General or Family Dollar or one of those, and he found fake Christmas trees for $7.50. So his question to me was, can I use those in my pond? Well, yeah, I don't see any reason not to. Hello, Danny Mack. You're hanging out down there just before this cold front blows through. You know, we've had, I don't know what it's been like everywhere else, but it's been in the 80s here, which is not characteristic. Anyway, his question to me was, can I use those in my pond? Because it's way cheaper than any of the homemade stuff that I make. So what I responded back to him, I said, heck yeah, let's use them. Now, here's the thing you need to know about artificial Christmas trees. As long as they're made out of plastic, don't break loose, and then float around in your pond, I think they're fine. Now, one thing I would expect is most of the branches are made out of some kind of steel or metal product of some sort. And I have actually put fake Christmas trees in the water and used them before. And fish are attracted they're magnets. They're fish magnets for little bitty fish, especially. And so I'm not opposed to using those. Hello, Wayne. Good to see you and Josie. Hope you guys are camping out, having fun at your place. So, the thing I like about artificial structure, there's several things I like. First of all, it's attractive to fish. They love it. The bass like the edge cover. Bait fish love to get in it. In northern tier ponds, yellow perch will spawn all over it. It's right at ice off. They'll start laying eggs on it, and they love it. Jamie Clayton, good to see you. So, now, the only thing I might not like about it is if they come apart, which the ones I've used in the past were put together pretty tight. They didn't come apart. You know, and what I mean by that is as those metal limbs begin to corrode underwater, you know, if they get fragile enough, then they can break loose. I haven't seen that happen, but that's my only little caveat. The other thing I love about them is that plastic substrate grows a lot of periphyton and algae and, you know, little microscopic stuff as it helps glean nutrients from your water column. So basically what happens is these trees are a substrate for periphyton and things to grow on that give to the food chain vertically, and they're perfect for fish to congregate around and be attractive. Hey, honey, Debbie, girlfriend wants out. She's at the front door and she's crying, and I'm doing a broadcast. So here we go. Hey, Deborah. I shouldn't yell at my wife. I won't. Christopher, what's up? And so anyway, doggone it. Hey, Debbie, can you let girlfriend out? She's crying to go outside. Live broadcast, folks. Live broadcast. Here we are. Jamie, what process for you in the pond management community thought to be true has changed the most in the last 20 years? Oh, I love that question. That's a great question. The processes have changed a lot because we have more tools. 20 years ago, that would have been 2002. So in 2002, that was about the time that aeration was getting cranked up. That was about the time that there were some things we could do to amend the water. Back in the 90s, there was no aeration. Aeration was what happened at water treatment plants. So the processes really haven't changed a lot, but the tools and products have changed a whole lot. It's like, for example, in the South, it's always been pretty much a rule of thumb that you fertilize ponds and lakes. Well, that's because you want to create the basis of the food chain, so you have higher survival rates of newly hatched fish. If you don't have a good bloom and visibilities down to 2 feet to 18 inches to 30 inches, something like that, then you're not going to have the higher survival rate you need of your forage fish, which are the backbone of the food chain to make a lake work. Now with improved fish foods, that's mitigated some. Now, I'm not saying we still don't fertilize lakes in the South, because we do, but what that's done is change the way we can manage lakes in the North. In the North, you don't really want to fertilize the water because you don't want to go into the wintertime with a plankton bloom or a heavy oxygen demand from dead plankton or dead plants, but you can sure feed these high protein, highly digestible feeds and get some growth rates on your fish, the fish that eat fish food. So the processes are pretty much the same. I'll tell you another big difference is there is such a wider variety of aquatic herbicides. Kelly Duffy can tell you about that sort of thing, but Steve Snow said to tell you hello, honey. Steve came by and visited with kids, wink, wink, not long ago. Look on his Facebook page and you see what I'm talking about after the show. So anyway, the electrofishing is still the same. Our methods of collecting data about a fishery is still the same. The fundamental principles of building ponds and lakes are the same. But I'll tell you what's refined about that is 20 years ago, people didn't give a whole lot of concern to underwater habitat to support the fishery beyond bass. So most lakes back then that were built for fishing were focused mainly on the game fish. People didn't think a lot about what to do about the bait fish. And to be frank about it, that's about the time I started thinking about it and started implementing things that were more helpful to the forage fish too, because as this puzzle of pond management started to gel in my mind, I started seeing the need. If every single pond and lake that I look like that's got some years on it, its fish population is a reflection of its water and its habitat. Every single one. And where I'm going with this is when you start looking at the results of your fishery, those results are a direct reflection of what those fish have available in terms of habitat. If they do the sunfish have places to spawn? Do the bass have places to spawn? Do the minnows have places to spawn? So when you've got all that, hey honey, Steve Snow said to tell you hello. She made her chuckle. She's thinking about last week when you came. Christopher Aguilar, Ron Ardoin. Where's Ron? I don't know. I'm going to be seeing Ron next week and maybe get to hang out with you if Ron sets it up. Going to be in Louisiana on the 6th, I believe, working on a lake. So anyway, the herbicides are better. Fertilizers are better. techniques haven't changed a whole lot. The equipment has, like to apply rotenone. Used to, you had to get the powdered rotenone, make softballs out of it, and throw it so they could sink to the bottom of the pond and spread the rotenone in the bottom while you're mixing it up in the water column with a boat. Now there's pumps. You can pump it to the bottom of the lake. You know, there's better ways to apply aquatic herbicides. So the processes are pretty much the same, but the techniques and the products have expanded immensely. We have better water amendments. We have soil amendments that we didn't have. You know, back then the soil amendments we had were basically bentonite, added clay to make ponds not leak, and then there's a product called ESS 13 that was developed in Arizona to keep irrigation canals from leaking and seeping. So that process, but it wasn't used much in the pond industry. But you add aeration, you add ways to move water, you add much better fish foods, you add better acting fertilizers, better genetic testing of fish. If you want to go that route, you can. 20 years ago, it was a crapshoot, and you spent a lot of money to try to figure out if you had Florida bass or not. You know, back then it was if you wanted Florida bass, you bought them from a reliable source that raises them. You know, if you wanted to do genetic testing, you're going to spend $500. And then maybe they're right, maybe they're not. You know, so those are some of the things that have changed. All right, good, Christopher, good. I'm glad get to see you. David Watkins, ag lime is still a pain in the rear. That's a pretty good setup. I'm going to leave it lay, so to speak. Yep, lime. I shouldn't laugh at this, but it happened so long ago I can. But I was helping to apply some lime into a lake in East Texas, and the landowner had done everything right. He built a bulkhead when he built the lake. He had a place he could tie up a barge. Now, this lake was probably 80 acres, and he knew that he was going to be putting lime in it every 5 to 10 years. So what he did was he had a new ranch manager, and the ranch manager had the lime truck dump a big pile of lime on the shore beside the bulkhead. Well, he wasn't real familiar with that the front end loader. So we pulled the barge up, he and I did, and then we tied the barge off to the bulkhead. And then the first time we did it, honey, I can see your reflection. And so he tied it up, and then when he went and got on the front end loader, he dumped the first load onto the barge, and he put too much. And he didn't put it in the center, and the barge kind of tilted. Well, it tightened the rope up that was tied to the cleat. So he backed the tractor up, went and got another load, put it on the other side, and then the barge went like that. So the back of the barge was kind of taking on water. What it was a pontoon boat, a 24-foot pontoon boat that just had the deck and the console and outboard motor. And we had a pump on it, and when that motor tilted, that pump slid in the water. So we had to fish that pump out and get the water out of it, which took a couple hours, and then get it going. And then when we got ready to pull the barge away from the bulkhead, we had to cut the rope because when it tilted, it tightened one of the ropes so tight we couldn't get it loose. So that we should have stopped right there. So we ended up going out, shoveled some of the lime off right there at the bulkhead to kind of even things out a little bit. And we got out in the middle of the lake, and I'd never done it before. This is probably 1988, 87, 88, through there somewhere. We got out and he cranked his pump up, started spraying that lime off into the lake. So I was spraying the lime while he was driving the boat. And so it probably took us 30 minutes to get rid of about 5 tons of lime in that lake. So it didn't take very long. So the next load we pulled up to the bulkhead went smooth. We had about 2 more loads to do, and on this particular load, he got the tractor. He was trying to balance the load, didn't have the rope so tight, having the pontoon boat tied to the bulkhead, and he got that second batch of lime and dumped it on the pontoon boat on the barge, and his right front tire came off the bulkhead. And the tractor started to fall in the lake. So he tried to back up. He couldn't back up. I bailed off the barge. I was already wet by then anyway because we had to fish the dadgum pump out of the lake. And so, and I was in my 20s and felt like it. So I got off that barge, and then he decided that he was going to try to use the barge, the front end loader, to push the bucket to use to push the tractor back up. So he did, and when he did that, it worked, but it cracked the middle of that barge, the plywood in between the two loads of lime, and it cracked the deck of his boat. But he was able to get the tractor off. So that was an adventure that day, but we got that lime out. So yeah, if you want to talk about it being a pain in the neck, it is. I get that. It is. Ag lime is still a pain in the neck. But you got the right tools. Somebody knows how to operate a tractor, and you don't overload the barge, you can get it out. I remember Bob McFarland putting some lime out one time, and what he did was he strapped an 8-foot sheet of plywood to the front of his John boat, and he used bag lime. And he would cut the bags open and pour the lime onto that plywood, and then he used a backpack leaf blower to blow it all in the lake. Worked great until he went against the wind. And he sent me a picture one time of that lime blowing back on him, and he had a mask on. That was before people knew about masks. So anyway, that was a pretty fun picture. I hate that I didn't get to be involved in that one. Not. All right, Frank James, let's see here. When the time comes to fertilize, would it work better to mix it with water in a cooler and then distribute, or would throwing the particles out on the pond work equally? Happy New Year, Jerry Siebert from Oregon. Frank James is from Shreveport, Louisiana, by the way. So with fertilizer, your goal is to get it mixed into the water column. So whatever method works best, and sometimes that hinges a little bit on the kind of fertilizer you've got. Today's like Perfect Pond, I think they call it. The brand names are escaping me a little bit, but Perfect Pond fertilizer is one of them, I believe. Those are so soluble that when they hit the water, they start to dissolve. So what most guys do there is put it out with a boat and then slowly pour it in the prop wash of the outboard motor, and it mixes it really, really well. Now, depending on your alkalinity, the higher the alkalinity, the more you can see that fertilizer being mixed, because what happens when it dissolves in highly alkaline water, it binds with the lime or the alkalinity, the calcium carbonate that's dissolved in the water, and it binds some of that phosphorus, and so, but you can see that stuff's dissolved. The mission is don't allow it to sink to the bottom and get tied up in the mud, because then you're fertilizing rooted aquatic plants. But if you want to mix it up, and you can, and it's logistically possible, do it. Used to, when I was fertilizing lakes, I would go buy liquid fertilizer like a 1037 or 1137-0 or a 1034-0, and then I would put that in 5-gallon buckets, and then pour that into a 55-gallon barrel, pump that barrel about half full of water, mix it as good as I could. And then I had a little device I could clamp onto the lower unit right in front of the propeller that looked like a little backwards funnel. And it would use the prop to suck. And a hose came up that I could put down in that barrel. And the prop wash, it was a Venturi system, basically. So when you kicked on the outboard motor and put it in drive, put it in forward, it would suck water through, or suck the fertilizer through that Venturi and mix it in behind the prop wash. Nowadays, guys that use liquid fertilizer got special setups where they can just draft it, mix it, pump water continually into their tank and then pump it out as they go. So the bottom line is this. You want to mix as much of that fertilizer into the upper 2 feet of the water column as you can. So that means getting it dissolved either as it hits the water or before it hits the water, so it can dissolve better when you pump it into the water. All right, Danny Mac, I pulled a lot of fish at tractors because 4 big catfish go straight to them when they get hooked. By the way, these son of a guns take baited hooks all day long, as though it's now round 3. Well, I'll tell you what, you got some pretty aggressive catfish, because the catfish I've got, they don't that I had, they don't do that. A little bit of water. Josiah Town from Clinton, Missouri. I've been to Clinton, Missouri. Johnny Morris has got a place up there, and I remember he tells a story on me that was pretty fun. His son, John Paul, had me come up with the electrofishing boat and sample a bunch of there. They got a bunch of, I guess it's actually not in Clinton. It's south of Clinton, I believe, or east of Clinton. Anyway, there's a bunch of strip mine pits over there. And Johnny came, and he had some buyers coming from a big company that were trying to sell him on some product to sell through Bass Pro Shops. So he wanted to know if they could climb in an electrofishing boat. Now, these guys were all dressed in slacks, and we started shocking up carp. I mean, in this big one big reservoir, we were shocking up carp, throwing them in the shocker boat. John Paul and one of his running buddies were catching them and just flipping them right around behind. And these dadgum slimy carp were flopping and getting all over these guys. They'd never seen it before. They'd never done it, but I've never seen guys having so much fun getting filthy, slimy, fishy, nasty in Sunday school clothes. But it was really, really fun. Christopher Aguilar was in Mountain Springs, Texas. I know where that is. I used to live not far from there, actually probably 25 miles. So I know where Mountain Springs, Texas is. There's a little winery back there and a couple of wedding venues. I would almost bet you went to a wedding or something. Okay, so I want to circle back and talk more about these Christmas trees underwater. I mean, it is the season. You know, I've had, over the years, many people come to me and say, hey, can we go get Christmas trees off the Christmas tree lots? And here we are, I don't know what, 3 or 4 days past Christmas. Those Christmas trees are probably gone. But if they're not and you want them, go get them. But now here, let me tell you what's going to happen. When you take those Christmas trees and put them in a pond, if you don't stand them up, if they're laying flat, in 2.5 years, they will be gone. Now, I don't literally be gone, but I mean, effectively, as structure cover, they're going to be gone. Because what happens when they're laying flat, all the needles come off the first 6 or 8 months. Then the next 6 or 8 months, the small twigs break down, and then they begin to collapse on themselves. And then as the lake ages and silt gathers, they sink into the mud, get silted over the top, and they pretty much disappear. You got to dig around to find them. But if you'll stand them up straight, and you can do that by putting them in a bucket of concrete, or even just a bucket half full of concrete. If you can stand those things up, they'll last up to 8 or 9 years. And another thing about these trees, even if you're going to use the plastic Christmas trees like the guy was talking about in the email today, clump them. You don't want to just put one here and one over there and one over there and one over here. So if you've, like if his Christmas trees are 5 feet tall, I'd say put those in 7 feet of water, 8 feet of water, stand them up straight and clump them. Now they don't have to be touching each other, but as long as you've got 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, in a unit, then that turns into more of a community than it does a single fish attractor. So bulk mass is really, really important when you're thinking about adding structure this time of year. Josiah's property is right next to all those strip pits. Holy cow, look at there. Howard Dietrich's checking in. Yeah, well, Josiah, you know what I'm talking about then. Hey, Pond Boss, feeders arrived. Sweet, you got fish food coming next week. Howard's place is not far from Live Oak, Florida, but we have to keep it a secret because his fishing buddy is a retired highway patrolman, and he packs heat. So he doesn't want any of us knowing where the place is. Matter of fact, they blindfolded me to take me in to go meet up with the electrofishing boat and shock it 3 or 4 weeks ago. That's not totally true, but might as well be. So, that's good stuff. Matt Marsden, hey, we're talking about artificial structure. You guys click on Matt Marsden's Facebook page, and it'll take you to what he does. He creates artificial habitat as well out of Tennessee. So he's got a pretty cool gig going on with that stuff too. American Fish Tree is the name of his company. So Aguilar went to mother-in-law's crib, benefited from rich folks' ponds or pond in the downhill from the rich folks. Caught a bass, a crappie, and a catfish in a 1/4 acre farm pond. That worked out pretty good. You had great weather for it. 80 degrees during the daytime, 60s at night, Christmas. I can see that in Australia, but I can't see that here. But it happened. Well, hey, you guys do me a favor. Click like. Put hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comments section. Share this to your timeline, and you'll be eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat and a coffee mug. Now, I'm a little underdressed here because I don't have those to show you, but you guys have seen those before that watch this show regularly, so you know what I'm talking about there. So, and hey, you know what? While we're talking about it, a little commercial, Pond Boss Magazine. I've got a tattered copy that I've actually read, even though I put it together. $35 a year. Now, we're not going up on the price yet. So $35 a year. Cheaper than a Friday night date. And it lasts a year. And that date lasts not even a day. And so, and I promise you'll get a nugget out of each one of these. This subscription to this, that's what fuels the economy to do what we do, to keep Pond Boss Inc. rolling. So, and besides, it's something that you can use. You can ask Howard. He'll tell you. Won't you, Howard? That's how we got to, how about we click heart instead? You know what? Yeah, you know what? And I got some kind of an alert today that there's some kind of a star system that Facebook's put up. I don't like Facebook that much because they limit your audience growth. They want me to pay them to put this out in front of other people to grow my audience. Where what I'd rather do is use the content to grow the audience, and my gleaming personality to make this audience grow because the content has value. So I don't really like that very much. But yeah, click heart. I don't know if that helps, but I do know they've got something going on. And I'm going to read about it because I just saw it when I first came on. There's Josie. I see Josie checking in. Travis Paul Smith. How you had a great Christmas. Yes, we did, because we got to hang out with people, with our grandkids from Alabama, grandkids from Van Alstyne, Texas, grandkids from Gunner, grandkids from Brenham. The only one we didn't get to spend time with is Ethan, and he's in Clovis, New Mexico. Couldn't go. Jamie Clayton, Bob, curious, do you believe a structure such as a 55-gallon barrel with only 1-inch holes in it that won't allow predator fish stuffed with artificial Christmas trees be utilized by forage fish, especially in the winter? Okay, I'm trying to visualize that. So if we have a 55-gallon barrel with 1-inch holes that won't allow predator fish stuffed with artificial Christmas trees be utilized, no, I don't think they'll use that. And I'll tell you why. It's too confining. Those forage fish like to be in a place where they know they can escape. Now they can't think. The way that works is that's innate in them, and it's conditioned into them by that habitat. Plus, when that water sits in that 55-gallon barrel, it isn't going to move. And the water, in order to cleanse itself and add oxygen, it's got to be able to move some. So I'd be a little bit worried that if you had a 55-gallon barrel and even if it's got 1-inch holes in it and you stuff it full of those artificial Christmas trees, I don't think those bait fish will use it. They can't get in and can't get out. They can probably get in it, but they can't get out, and that's not good for them. Now, what you can do, if you want to take a 55-gallon barrel and drill it full of bigger holes and stuff the Christmas trees in on the outside and then set it up like that and make it a tree itself, that would attract fish. The limbs help do that. J.P. Clayton's watching from Guyana. That's a long ways from Granbury, Texas. Hola to Josie. Okay, so now then, also can extremely dense habitat like brush piles really affect the water temperature by 5-10 degrees like some say in the winter? No, it cannot. What it is that, I tell you, where in most ponds and lakes where when we're using the electrofishing boat, and we come across a beaver lodge, you can bet every single time in a lake that's got any degree of management, that beaver lodge is going to be so full of 1 to 3 inch bait fish that when we run those electrodes over it, they just pop out like popcorn. And it's just, that is the most attractive, dense, brushy cover like that. It's real attractive to bait fish, but it cannot influence the temperature of the water. I can't see how it can preserve the temperature, and it can't influence it because there's no source of heat. Now as that stuff breaks down, with bacterial colonies, that might affect the temperature, but it's not going to be measurable. So no, I don't believe that dense habitat like brush piles affect the temperature of the water at all. I can't see how that would work. All right, Chris Arthur, you see it. You got it. Okay, you guys throw some questions at me as I do another little commercial. Oh, by the way, we've had several people buy into the Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology. You can find that at pondboss.com. And I'm going to tell you the resources that you've got. I've got several of them. Of course, you got these videos. After this video, in a few days, Leanne will upload it to YouTube and then give it a name. And so we archive those. It'll also be linked through the Pond Boss website. The Pond Boss website in its own right has got all kinds of free articles, lots of free videos, the discussion forum, Ask the Boss. I've been remiss, I haven't looked at it. I looked at it today for a few minutes, but I haven't looked at that since September. I was fascinated how many new questions and responses. There's over 500,000 replies and responses, and it's starting its 20th year. So there's some really super people on there that know the answers. Eric West I call him the librarian, because when somebody asks a question, he knows where it is. He knows where the answers are. He knows where the links, the threads are. He'll tell people. Bill Cody from Malenta, Ohio, aquatic biologist, microbiologist. He's on there. Lots of folks do that. So you got that resource. Then you got the Institute of Higher Pondology. You have to pay for that. But I'm going to tell you this. It will help you if you're going to build a pond or a lake, or if you've got one that you want to make better, make the fishing better, if you want to understand your water chemistry, if you want to understand fisheries management, if you want to build a lake, that Institute of Higher Pondology will save you money way above and beyond what you spend, because it's going to help you with the dumb tax. I can't tell you how many times I go look at a property and I go look at a pond or look at a lake, and people, and this holds true for me when I'm talking about anything but fish, is you don't know what you don't know. And the 20-something videos on that pondology course gives you a lot of information. And it may not give you all the answers, but it will give you a lot of the questions that you need to ask. So it's going to answer a bunch of questions. And typically with knowledge, when you get those questions answered, it's like peeling an onion. You get that first layer off, then you got more onion. So you got more questions, but you have smarter questions. And then you know what to ask people. And you know what to ask the earth mover. You know what to ask the fish hatchery. You know what to ask me. And so I would highly recommend the Institute of Higher Pondology. Now, when you spend money on it, I get it. I get the money. That's part of the way I'm setting up my retirement. But I'm not going to sit here and brag about how great it is and tell you about it unless I am 100% convinced that it will help you. I know it will, because the topics we cover, I've covered for 40 years with people learning about it. The other thing is my book is just about to go to the printer. It's called Beyond the Basics, Fundamental Pond Management. I think it's $29.95. Might as well call it $30, which includes shipping. That thing should be ready to go by March 1st. As a matter of fact, I would bet it will be ready to go before that, because I proofread it today and yesterday and the day before and made a couple of changes, doing some of the technical things like acknowledgments and all that stuff you see in the front and back of a book. So that book is going to be available as well. So there's a lot of resources out there, including this Facebook page. So, yep. All right. So Christopher Aguilard, we will see you later. Go to work. Okay. So now let me see here. Travis is in Mexico, 85 degrees here. Been here 3 weeks, back in Mississippi 1st of March. Oh, wow. You're going to be gone a while. The weather in Texas has been stellar. 80 degrees, 75 degrees. It was in the 70s today. But that's all going to change. There's a little bit of an Arctic system that's kind of drifting south. And I was reading my son's weather down west of Houston, and it's going to be like 88 there on Friday, and then Saturday it's wind chills in the 20s. So we've got cold weather coming, which we should. It's winter. Jeremy Duckworth, good job. James Allen, I have left over MVP feed in a small garbage can with a tight lid in my basement. Anything else I need to do so it overwinters? I'd keep it where it's cool. If it's cool in your basement, keep it there. If it's not, I'd set it in the garage. Now, one thing you got to do when you've got a garbage can with a tight lid, the good thing I like about MVP now is, and all the all the Aquamix lineup of products, is that they've got better vitamin packages that don't break down over 7 or 8 months now. Now, they're not going to tell you that, but that's the truth. The vitamins that they put into those now that enhance fish growth, along with the proteins, it's got a longer shelf life. But if you keep it cool, it's going to last even longer. So, let's see what we got here. Yeah, and you know what? The other thing is don't let that feed get wet. If you get wet, then it's going to mold. If it molds, aflatoxins issues. And I've actually had people who have fed moldy feed to their fish, not knowing what they don't know, and kill some fish, and then blame it on the fish food. No, it's not that way. Don't let it get wet. Keep it dry. Yep. Michael Gregory, do you ever recommend adding aquatic vegetation to a pond? Scenario, I have a two-third acre pond that is a bit murky. I have a 13-acre lake 300 yards away, and I'm considering transplanting some American Pondweed from the lake to the pond. I'd like to clear the pond water up a bit and add cover. Danny Mac, I don't know about Amazon Kindle. That's stuff I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to approach that. And I damn sure don't want Amazon making money off of me unless it's mutually beneficial. Like, I think their nature is they tell you what to sell your book for, which I'm speaking out of left field a little bit. That's based on what other people have told me. But I'll sure look at that or get Leanne to look at it. Okay, so Michael, to answer that question, I don't ever recommend people add aquatic plants to a new pond. And here's why. Because if the circumstances, situation, habitat, substrate is there for aquatic plants to grow, they're going to grow. I'm continually fascinated at the seed banks in dirt. I oversaw the construction of a lake in the middle of a cornfield in a swale in Iowa. And when that pond was finished, it wasn't a month later in the summer that American Pondweed was springing up around it. And I know he didn't put the seeds in. Those seeds were in the seed bank from eons ago, and they sprouted. Now, what I recommend is see what the pond's going to do on its own, because I see your thought process. Your thought process is, if I can get American Pondweed growing, then my water's going to clear up. Well, the reason the American Pondweed is growing is because the water cleared up. So it's kind of 180 degrees the other way. So the more the conditions favor the plants are going to grow in those conditions. Now, what I would do is give it through the summer. When I say through the summer, give it until July or August. Then if you don't see American Pondweed growing, then consider going to transplant some. Now, the reason I'm telling you that is because not only do I like you to wait, because I don't want to see waste effort, waste labor. See if that water's going to clear up a little bit. If it's not, you can nudge it to clear up a little bit. And you want to see if it's going to drop or not. Because if you plant American Pondweed in 6 inches of water and the pond drops 10 inches, it ain't going to grow. It's going to be high and dry. Then it's wasted effort. So that's where I'm going with that. Let's see. Patton Embry. That's a new name. Don't recognize Patton. Good to see you. Danny Mac, watch the daily forecast. If the weather gets progressively colder, watch out. Yep, that's fixing to happen, brother. Let me see what else I missed here. Oh, I see something up here. Chuck Brinkman. Let's see here. So, Michael, I would say let the pond age a little bit, at least until the summer. See what happens. Then if you don't see growth and you want to try to amend the water to clear it up a little bit with gypsum or lime or alum, something like that, get the water a little bit clearer. You need to have, I'm going to tell you, 10 inches of visibility in shallow water for plants to grow. So start measuring your visibility depth and see what it really is. And then, wait until the middle of summer, and when that American pondweed begins to mature, then transplant some of it and see if that works. All right, let's see here. What else we got here? Chuck had a friend ask me if their 10-year-old daughter could try out her new rod she got for Christmas. Oh, boy, I can see this coming. At his pond in west of St. Louis, her third cast, she pulled in a 3.5-pound bass, her personal best. Days like that make the effort even more worthwhile. Yeah, that's stellar. I love that. When what you can't see over my shoulder is the Brazos River. And, my backstory, I tell a little bit of that in the introduction of this book that's coming out. But back in August of 1969, my parents bought a place on the river. I grew up in Fort Worth, which is about 60 miles from here. They bought a place, as the crow flies, 5 miles. As the river goes, probably 30 miles. And that's where we went every weekend. That's where I figured out that I wanted to make a living messing with fish. It was in this river right here. So when we got ready to sell our place, we talked it over and thought, you know what? If we could find a place on the river somewhere where we could let these grandkids go wade and skip rocks and trap minnows and kayak and fly fish or whatever, let's do that. And that's what we've done. So over the holidays, all these little grandkids that were able to come, not only did they get to hang out with Santa for a little bit, the weather was so nice, even though the water was a little chilly, that they were in the river. And that's, we'd let them play in the river for an hour and a half, bring them up, do other stuff, make cookies, decorations. Each of them, oh my gosh, they picked up so many mussel shells in the river, they wanted to bring them into the kitchen, clean them up, and paint them. So somewhere around here, there's a box of seashells. Came out of the river right back here. So, I think it just, Chuck Brinkman with what you're doing and the effort that it takes to keep that pond happy, keep the water happy, keep the fish growing, figure out the balances, harvest fish. All those things pay off when you let that little girl come catch that 3.5-pound bass. I saw a TikTok video yesterday of a toddler just learning how to talk. She's probably, I bet you she's not 18 months old. And and I don't know how to tell you to find it, but it was just cute as heck. This little girl holding about a 2.5-pound bass. She's hugging it and she's talking to that fish. It's okay. It's okay. I love you, fish. It's okay. You're going to be okay. And after about 30 seconds of that, Dad says, well, here, let me have him so he can go back in the water. She said, okay. Oh my gosh, that little girl, even though she's 18 months old, she's going to be influenced by that. And I think that's a big deal. I think that's a big part of the deal about, having these ponds and lakes is to experience it and teach other people about it. Okay, David Watkins, fixed our slipped PVC standpipe. Okay. In Athens, but with big rains, we're seeing now I need more volume. Oh, it's been ran off. David. Hey, David, I am going to come back and talk to you about that in a minute. Fixed our slip PVC pipe stand in Athens, but with big rains, we're now seeing I need more volume. Is it okay to suck water off the top of the lake in a secondary drain system? I need to protect the spillway. Absolutely, yes. Now, David Watkins is a retired physician from Dallas, and he's got he's one of several owners of a lake south of Athens, Texas. Got to see him about a year ago. And so, David, when you ask me where I am, a bit of research. Oh, I just got a call. I had to cancel it. So, I did a little bit of research, and I've been meaning to call you. I just haven't done it yet, but we've moved to Pecan Plantation on the river downstream from Lake Granbury. And I was pleasantly surprised to learn about your mother. Because when it looks to me like she's done some pretty fantastic things in her years for the city of Granbury. You know, now back in August of 1969 is when my parents bought this place on Mitchell Bend. And David, I expect you've spent some time here along the river. And so back then there wasn't much to Granbury, the town. It was just a small rural community, which it still is, but now it's a tourist mecca. And I can remember driving around the square, and most of the businesses were boarded up, you know, not doing very well. And now it's a thriving little tourist town with great restaurants, boutiques, the Granbury Opera, you know. So, and I understand that your mom played a pretty significant role in that. And I do want to visit with you about that, because I want to hear your stories. Because I've got some, I do want to talk about Lake Granbury as well. Because when we bought this, or my parents bought the place in 1969, it was August. That was the year that they impounded Lake Granbury. So that's like 50-something years ago, 52 years ago. And so I got to drive around in the basin of what's now Lake Granbury before it filled up with water. You know, and that's when I started getting impacted by the region, by the water, by the habitat, by what was living in it, you know, all that cool stuff. So, hey, Mike, I saw you check in. I just talked about your Christmas tree. Mike Sabicki is the one that was talking about the artificial Christmas trees. So, David, buttermilk pie. Oh, my gosh. Well, we know where we're going. Yep. Okay, so let's see here. I'm getting a little bit off track. But, David, I do want to talk to you. We're in Pecan Plantation, and something ironic, Pecan Plantation was started by O.B. Leonard from Fort Worth, who had Leonard Brothers Department Store. Now, I never met him. He was gone before I got anywhere of age. But two of his children, Bob and Paul, who are now deceased, I got to help them with their lakes and ponds. One of them not far from here. The very first lake I ever stocked Florida bass in was probably not 10 miles from right here in Nemo, Texas. So anyway, yeah, I do want to take you up on that, David. Okay, so now let's see here. There's Harrison Davis. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's to you guys. Okay, James Allen, ever hear of, holy cow, things are spinning. Ever hear of Q critical method for determining the maximum water flow a stream can support before it erodes the stream bed and dumps it to a lake, the stream bed? I haven't heard of it called that, but I know what you're talking about. I'll leave that to the engineers. It's really hard. My brain can't comprehend how to calculate. Here's what I can do. I can calculate pretty much the size of a watershed and give you some idea as to how much water you can expect to come down that watershed on any given rain event based on the percentage of runoff that it has. Now, what I can't tell you is how that's going to affect the stream bed. You know, but that's going to be part of what we, like if we're going to put an 80-acre lake in a watershed, we're going to have an engineer figure that out. That's money well spent. So I don't know much about that, to tell you the truth. Danny Mac, if you're downstream of the nuclear plant, I wouldn't worry. We're upstream of the nuclear plant. Yep. Matter of fact, that plant was built after I stopped coming down here back, I guess when I went to Texas A&M, I stopped coming down here. That was in 1976. Call me anytime. Is the square decorated? It is decorated to the hilt. It's absolutely beautiful. Go by the old place on Bridge Street. I have not done that yet. But you know what? I did get to eat at the Nut House restaurant. And I remember, I think it was hot water cornbread. Maybe back in the late 70s, 80s maybe. I don't remember. But I need to study up about the place on Bridge Street. As we all get ready to watch Georgia take down the mighty Wolverines, I wanted to share an interesting fact about the University of Georgia. Sergeant Charlie Beckwith, with the founder of Delta Force, graduated from and played for UGA. God bless our selfless veterans. Hear, hear, cheers. water in my Yeti cup. Cheers to our veterans. My dad was, I have a son that is, and a grandson that will be. Okay, Jamie Clayton. No, two of your favorite structures are beaver dams and rock piles. Yep, that's right. If you were building a structure for forage, would a replicated beaver dam with large and small rocks inside and on top be what you consider the perfect structure? Yes, it would. The thing to keep in mind is that you want places where tiny fish can escape being eaten, have some substrate on which they could graze, and wood and rock both fit that model, with edge cover in shallow water next to deep water where you also have bass attractors. I consider that perfect. So now a bass attractor to me would be a 12-inch diameter oak tree, root ball intact, small limbs cut off, limbs 2 inches or bigger left intact, hanging at a 45-degree angle from the shore where the root ball is under, just barely underwater, next to that beaver lodge with all the rocks in it, sitting next to a spawning bed. That's what I think is perfect. And the way that tree sits at a 45-degree angle, it straddles a channel. Now, if you can replicate that over the entire lake and pond, then you're going to have what it takes to have the perfect habitat for all the different sizes of all the different species of fish that you're trying to grow. Travis, Happy New Year's to you and Miss Deb and your whole family. Thank you for all you do. Man, all I do is sit down and talk about it, except I do get to go out and do it still. So I'm thankful for that, and I appreciate the kind words. So anyway, the main gist of this conversation today is I wanted to talk about habitat. I wanted to talk about structure. I want to talk about cover. Talk about using Christmas trees. You know, one of the things about northern ponds, you guys have an advantage this time of year. If it's cold enough, you got ice. And you can actually take some of these Christmas trees, set them in, concrete, buckets. You can buy some of Matt Marsden's stuff with a base on it. Go set it on top of the ice where you want it to be placed. Drill a hole in the ice, tether it onto a weight of some sort, so when the ice breaks, it's not going to float away. As the ice begins to melt, a lot of times that ice will shift and float and move. But you can keep that stuff in place right there, and then when the ice melts, it'll fall right down where you want it. So we're at 7:23, and my voice is beginning to crack a little bit. Let me go back and make sure I didn't miss any questions. Let's see. I think I've covered all the questions. Christopher Aguilar, look forward to seeing you next week. I think Ron Ardoin's working today, or he'd be on here and be talking. All right. I think I got all of them covered here. So I'm going to stick around another minute. Let me see if I can think of anything else. What do we do with our ponds this time of year? Something that did strike me earlier today and just hit me. Is when we have these rising and falling temperatures like what we're seeing right now, when it goes from cold to warm back to cold, that can trigger an outbreak of ICH. ICH, look that up. That typically attacks crowded fish populations, more so catfish than any other kind of fish. But fish don't like it when the water goes up and down in temperature, especially if it goes up 15 or 20 degrees like it has in the last, 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, when we had one front where the water temperature went down into the mid 40s, and then it ran back up into the mid 60s. Then it went up into the upper 60s. Then now it's going to go back down into the 50s and then the 40s. That's a little bit stressful for fish. Chris Arthur, we'll see you next week too. That's cool. Good to see you, buddy. Yeah, I'm looking forward to spending some time hanging out, seeing what's going on there. That's sounds like a pretty fun project. Can't wait to kind of climb in that shocker boat and go see what's going on that water. So I think I'm going to wrap it up and call it a day. Now, next Wednesday, I think I'll be here. Either way, my plan is to hang out with you guys and talk more about ponds and lakes. Be sure to subscribe to Pond Boss Magazine if you haven't done that. $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date. It lasts a year. So, appreciate you guys watching the show. Appreciate your input, and you kind of help keep me energized, and I appreciate that. So until next week, adios. If I can turn it off. Where is it?